Hello, today we're going to be talking about dealing with loneliness and specifically what is the treatment for loneliness? How can we help, whether it's loneliness in ourselves or maybe we have a friend or family member that we think is lonely. So I think a couple of things. One is having a healthy mindset and two is developing healthy relationships. And paramount to those two is just awareness, self-awareness. Being aware that we're often drawn to the familiar rather than being drawn to the healthy. And a good example might be I'm very drawn to my sweets and to sugary things, and maybe not so drawn to things like vegetables, healthy things, fruits, because maybe it's not so familiar to me. So I think in terms of emotional needs, we might be drawn to destructive relationships. And maybe we're familiar with that because some of the traumas or issues we've experienced in childhood. So I think a thing to be aware of, just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. Equally, just because something feels a bit uncomfortable or you're not used to it, doesn't mean it's unhealthy. And what's interesting, what I've been doing is starting to have more healthy fruit and vegetable and starting to actually enjoy that more and more. And that's thanks to my wife. And so as a result of that's becoming more familiar, and so now it's familiar to me and it's also healthy. Think about maybe A Bug's Life. It's a children's movie. There is a clip in there, you can look at the YouTube clip, and the fly is drawn to a light, but the light is connected to electricity and the bug dies from electrocution. So familiar is not always healthy. So in terms of mindset, I think a couple of thoughts. One is don't settle for less. It's not a healthy way to build a relationship. So being in a relationship can be lonelier than being single. And so being aware that we can be drawn to harmful relationships. There's a good book called Better Single Than Sorry. And it's a no regrets guide to loving yourself and never settling for less. You can look that up if you like. A second thing is don't listen to lies. Again, that's not a good mindset. In the movie Bridget Jones' Diary, you have a single woman who's feeling the pressure from others and hears also negative messages internally from her own schemas that are driving her to unhealthy relationships and behaviors. I think thirdly, challenge harmful thinking. So those thoughts that are not helpful, like I'm not worth it, I'm a failure, I deserve to be alone, challenge those thoughts and replace them. Introduce helpful thoughts. I'm a valuable person, I have intrinsic value. I can achieve some of my goals, maybe not all of my goals, but definitely some of them. I deserve to be loved. I think awareness of the fact that all stages in life have unmet expectations. And don't wait for happiness to happen to you, make it yourself. I think another important thing in terms of dealing with loneliness and part of helping us move away from loneliness is breaking away from harm. So in the 1992 movie Singles, we see a woman who's drawn to destructive relationships, and in the end, through just changing her mindset, she decides, and building her own self-confidence, she decides to break away from a harmful relationship with a guy who basically is a real jerk. It's quite a funny movie, so you could have a look at that if you like. So thinking about schemas, it's not all negative. So there are some healthy schemas. We know about the 18 negative schemas through Jeffrey Young's work, and John Louis, over the last couple of years with his work, has identified 14 positive schemas. So they are ways of thinking about yourself and others which actually are helpful for building relationships. And so if we see on the top of the screen, we have connection and acceptance. And so where there's disconnection and rejection, which develops negative schemas, if we build connection and acceptance, then we can build these healthy schemas. And so that's through positive experiences So it's not all bad. So there'll be some great things that happened in childhood, and so we can also think about developing more on those strengths rather than just focusing on some of the weaknesses. And to the bottom of the screen we have intrinsic values and community. And so that maybe stems out a little bit from schema therapy, but it is also, I believe, a core emotional need. Just as we know it takes more than just one person, it takes a village to raise a child, that we all need that support and help from a functional community. So if we look at this diagram, we have on the left of the screen nurturing interaction. So that nurturing, that healthy emotional nutrition that is given to children where their core emotional needs are met, and that develops these positive schemas, as opposed to the other side where we have exasperation, not meeting these and developing negative schemas. And so you want less of the negative and more of the positive. And so in the end, when we deal with meeting these core emotional needs, when we actually have the support from a functional community, we actually can start to address that distorted view. We can see ourselves as more healthy, and then also we'll start to see others in a more healthy way and actually build better relationships, and so we can then build better social connection. I hope that was helpful. Thanks for listening.